utter brutality of how she was killed was among the worst I've ever seen as a crime reporter.
A brutal killing.
She tried to escape out of her bedroom window.
What happened to her in her house, that shouldn't happen to anybody.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
I think everyone assumed almost from the start that the killer knew the victim somehow.
He kind of had an infatuation with Kim Dorsey.
Based on all this information, his story's coming apart.
The truth will be revealed.
I just couldn't imagine the terror that she was experiencing. Her last words were, "Stop, you're killing me."
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. The gated communities of Jacksonville, Florida, are a haven of tranquility and affluence.
The area is absolutely gorgeous. You have, $500,000 homes. It has a small town feel. A lot of people know one another.
It's a very nice neighborhood, viewed as very safe. There's not a lot of crime there.
But on a quiet Sunday morning, all that is shattered.
Kim. Oh, you got him now.
Jacksonville, what's going?
Please send ambulance back.
Firefighter Derek Dorsey has just returned home from work to discover his wife Kim's motionless body.
Are you with her right now?
Yes, I am. Send rescue.
We are sending rescue. Is she awake?
No, she's not. I think she's dead.
He performed CPR on her. He's been working with the fire department for almost 20 years at this point, so he's seen a lot of things. He knows what to do, in an emergency. However, now the emergency is right in his bedroom.
You can actually hear kind of the waves of emotion. It was obvious to me that all that training and experience just kind of went out the door.
Okay, sir, tell me exactly what happened.
I don't know. She tried to commit suicide. Send rescue.
We are sending rescue. You have to tell me exactly what she did. What happened?
I don't know. She either cut herself or something. I can't see. I'm trying to figure the out.
After performing CPR for several minutes, Derek realizes it's too late.
It's a 607. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Lead investigator Larry Kuskowski and his team, along with Assistant State's Attorney London Kite, arrive at the scene.
The call itself was called in as a possible suicide. But the violence that was evident in the room, one person couldn't do this to themselves. There's a large amount of blood on the floor, on the walls. There's blood on the ceiling. You just knew there was, whatever happened here was very, very violent.
The scene just in and of itself was like, absolutely not, this is not a suicide. When the husband found his wife, he put the comforter over her body. So all I could see really was her foot and her arm. And then when the medical examiner got there, that's when they removed the comforter and exposed the brutality of what happened to her.
It's a tragic end to 38-year-old Kim Dorsey's life.
Kim Dorsey owned a business in the area, very well respected. She seemed like a wonderful person, and it seemed like she had an ideal marriage. people seem to have nothing but good things to say about her.
Well, why would anybody ever do something like this?
Investigators turned to her husband, Derek, to reconstruct the last 24 hours of Kim's life.
Derek told us he had gone to work the previous morning. The fire department works 24-hour shifts. When he comes home Sunday morning, shortly after 8 o'clock, he walks in the bedroom expecting to find his wife, in bed.
They had blackout curtains, so it was very dark in there.
He finds her on the floor at the foot of the bed. He goes, calls 911.
But by that point, Kim is already dead. And the team believes she had been for nearly 24 hours. Not far from Kim's body are the first clues to what happened.
There were plastic wire ties around Kim's ankles and in her wrists. Somebody tried to bind her up. I just figured there's probably a sexual assault here, based on what I saw. There was a broken pool cue on the floor. A gun was on the floor. There was a knife on the floor, all in the vicinity of her body. And there's bullet strikes in the wall and in the door frame in the bedroom. So if somebody was in the bedroom shooting out, did we know who shot? No, not yet. So there are a lot of things that needed to be explained.
Investigators fan out to examine the rest of the Dorseys' home.
Someone had gone through ransacking the kitchen, opened drawers, throwing stuff out of the drawers. Definitely someone looking for something. In the kitchen sink, there's 3 or 4 remotes in there and a keyboard that's part of this surround sound system, which was very odd. There was no damage to the front door that indicated that the door was forced open in any way. But I did notice something that was out of place. There was a ceramic dog statue by the front door, and it was tipped over. You have to take notice of things. During the course of the investigation, you are going over, inch by inch and foot by foot, just to make sure that you're covering everything.
They quickly come to their first conclusion.
The idea that some stranger would break into the house, tie someone up with zip ties, stab them, and beat them with a pool cue, that's just not the way it goes.
Kim Dorsey probably knew her attacker, or the attacker knew how to get into the home.
The simple fact is that you're much more likely to be killed by someone you know than by a stranger. And I think police understand that.
They need to drill down into Derek Dorsey's story.
Anytime a wife is murdered, the husband is a suspect. That's just a fact.
Derek, at this point, had been taken from the scene down to the detective division in downtown Jacksonville. After I walked the scene, I went downtown then to interview Derek.
Derek, I'm Larry Koskowski. It's difficult right now, a lot going on, but I need to talk to you, okay? I gotta get some information from you, okay?
I had him take me through the weekend. He told me on Friday night, Kim had left the house that evening for a couple hours to go do some shopping. They had stayed home Friday night, watched a movie. Derek was up early Saturday morning, and he left for work at about his usual time, right around 7, a little after 7 o'clock Saturday morning. Derek finished his shift on Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. So when he's gone for that 24-hour period, his wife was home by herself. He had tried to call her on Saturday several times via cell phone. Derek worked at a fire station that was about as far north as you could go in the county. Cell phone coverage out there wasn't always the greatest, and the call wouldn't go through. He said that it was not unusual for him not to have those calls answered.
So far, Everything Derek is telling them adds up, with one exception.
Here's a guy that's, trained professional, and we walk in and recognize the scene. This is no suicide. How did he not see that? Is Derek involved?
The one thing that I remember about Derek Dorsey is that he was so transparent. I've never seen someone as transparent as him.
He opened up to me. He took a deep breath and sighed, and he said, well, there's a lot, going on with both of us. He told me that him and Kim basically had just a different kind of a relationship. It was somewhat of a swinging lifestyle. So it went from not really knowing to, okay, now we have maybe some other factors going on here. I wasn't expecting that. But Derek then added on at that, he said, that Kim had stopped doing it because her mother had died 3 or 4 years earlier. Part of her way of coping with her mother's death. She sought out professional medical help, and she was on some medication that caused her to put on some weight and, maybe not feel quite as attractive as she maybe had at one time. That was one of the reasons Derek thought that when he first came home, that she had committed suicide.
With Kim having stopped the swinging lifestyle, they need to find out if Derek had too.
He was very subdued. He was very matter of fact. So I finally asked him, I said, well, listen, is there anybody else?
Any issues, where either one of you stepping out, girlfriend on your behalf or boyfriend on hers? Okay, you got a girlfriend? Okay.
When an investigator learns that the partner of the deceased had been cheating on each other in the relationship, that creates a different mindset for the investigator. In domestic-type murders, infidelity is often part of the motive of someone's death.
The admission of infidelity has made Derek Dorsey the first suspect in his wife's murder.
As an investigator, okay, step back, be careful, make sure you're really asking a lot of good questions of Derek, because this might be your one chance to do it, or he's speaking freely. Get as much information as you can to find out what's going on here.
Okay, you got a girlfriend? Okay, and who's that? Well, we're gonna find out.
We have a weird relationship.
Who has you and your wife?
My wife, it's not a don't ask, don't tell thing, but
tell me about it.
She knows who I was when she married me.
Now you've added some more motive, maybe. Maybe he wants out of this marriage.
They seek to determine what he would have gained with Kim gone.
We always look for, is there a financial benefit to this person's death? Larry did ask him about whether he had any kind of insurance policy, and he didn't. It put him in a worse position to have Kim Dorsey die before him, because she was the main breadwinner.
But that doesn't mean Derek wasn't responsible.
We thought about the time frame, like how much time he would have to drive back and forth from the fire station to the house.
The distance between the two locations is 15 miles and would take almost an hour round trip.
The fire station where he worked was small. They pretty much could account for every single minute of his day. All the firefighters were like, look, if he left that place, then we would definitely know. The detectives verified with all the firefighters. They determined that he had like a lock-solid alibi. Even though Derek Dorsey initially was a suspect, we just couldn't find any kind of crack in his account.
Investigators then consider the other angle.
So, you have this girlfriend that he's talked about. Maybe whoever his girlfriend, lover, whatever you want to call that person, wants the current wife out of the picture. Obviously, now we want to talk to her.
In the event that it's a love triangle, that someone may feel, for example, that they've been wronged by somebody, that they were promised something. I'll leave my wife, I'll leave my husband for you. Someone being jilted can be a very strong factor for murder.
We were also looking into the girlfriend to see if she had any additional information that Derek Dorsey didn't tell us, and also to see if he had ever admitted anything to her.
Detective Kuskowski must determine if Derek's girlfriend shows up anywhere in the last 24 hours of the victim's life.
She was very forthcoming. She spilled her guts about the lifestyle, what everybody was into, and all that. I was able to determine that she was west of the city of Jacksonville, where she resides, and I was able to rule her out.
Hoping to uncover clues about Kim's attacker, investigators return to the crime scene.
Specialists such as blood spatter analysts may be called in certain circumstances where it's not obvious to the investigators what has happened and who is involved, and they need more information, more data to help them discern what exactly took place. It's important to try to figure out the puzzle of what was the sequence of events. Where did the struggle initiate and where did it end? Because it tells you the story of what happened. It tells you the timeline of what happened.
Forensic experts established that the first point of attack is next to the nightstand.
We have a lot of blood cast off on that left side of the bed. She was severely injured, and she stayed there for a significant period of time.
But the evidence then suggests Kim comes to and fights back.
She was able to get to where she kept her gun. It was a 5-shot revolver.
They wanted to know whether I thought it would be probative or helpful to have them string it, which means to show the actual bullet trajectory, and I told them absolutely yes. Kim Dorsey had to be down and low near her nightstand. She fired off 5 shots.
Shooting at somebody that maybe is standing in the doorway or coming back to the doorway.
The strings reveal that despite firing all 5 rounds, Kim misses her attacker.
Trying to explain 5 bullet holes, therefore 5 misses, there's a number of reasons. Fear is the #1 problem. People freeze. We don't know how we're going to react in a state of emergency until we're into it. And it's not surprising that your aim is the last thing you're able to control.
And then that's when he goes back into the room to finish her off. He continued to beat her with a pool cue to the point in which it broke. We actually had the pool cue given to an engineer, and it took a tremendous amount of force to break a pool cue like that, and that was broken on Kim's body. To finish things off, he made sure that he stabbed her in the neck.
The detailed analysis provides all new insights into the crime and the potential perpetrator.
The most telling weapon would have been that pool cue, which all of them were kept upstairs, and that's not a natural weapon for someone to say, yeah, I want to go kill this person, so I'm gonna grab a pool cue.
We were able to figure out that the wire ties that were found on Kim's wrists and ankle, it looked like they came from the office upstairs.
And the knife was from a set that were inside the kitchen.
These were all things that suggest that whoever committed this crime was familiar with the house.
A brutal killer who knew Kim well enough to gain entry into her home and where to find weapons. For investigators, it suggests someone close to the family.
Kim's autopsy had already been performed. We knew she had been sexually assaulted.
We had a foreign male DNA profile, so we knew that we were looking for a man.
Based on what Derek Dorsey had said with other people in the house with the swinging lifestyle, who knows who's been here? Is this somebody that had been there before, that came back knowing Derek wasn't home and wanted to maybe see Kim again? Who knows?
We were looking at all those different individuals to make sure that we either rule them in or rule them out.
Detective Koskowski looks to Derek to provide potential names.
Derek is a general contractor on the side. Some of the guys that Derek used in his contracting business actually lived in the Dorsey house at one time.
Derek Dorsey was basically going through an entire timeline of like kind of who was in and out of the house.
I have one guy that used to work with me, Elvin. Lance Kirkpatrick.
Lance Kirkpatrick had a drug problem. He had been friends with the Dorseys. He was just one of those people who you invite into your house for a weekend, and then 3 months later you'd be trying to get him out. And so he eventually got thrown out of their house.
But according to Derek, that weekend, Lance is on a shrimp boat out in the Atlantic. The second individual that Derek had talked about was a guy by the name of Joshua Veal. Derek had befriended Josh and gave him some work and trying to help him out. He's a young kid. Derek and Kim allowed Joshua to reside in their home, but they had a falling out, and eventually Joshua moved out.
But Derek says he was still hiring Josh for odd jobs and had been due to see him the morning he discovered Kim's body.
Sunday morning when he got off, Derek was going to pick up Joshua Veal. They had agreed to meet at a convenience store up on the north side of Jacksonville, basically to do some work for him.
Joshua Veal never showed up. Why wouldn't he show up for this meeting if he's going to get money and get paid?
He's familiar with the house. He's done some work in the past for the Dorseys. So Josh was number one at that point.
Police discover Veal has a criminal record, mostly for drug-related offenses.
And he had actually just been arrested earlier in that week leading up to the weekend Kim was murdered. So brought him down, put him in an interview room. I didn't tell him anything about a murder. I just introduced myself as a detective.
One of the techniques used is not to tell a loved one or someone close that the person you're asking about is in fact dead or been murdered. Then you drop the bombshell looking for the responses. Are they genuine? Are they fake?
Josh claims he'd been partying all weekend at his house, including the time detectives believe Kim was killed.
But you spent Friday night at the house?
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't go anywhere Friday night?
No.
Okay. All right. Saturday night, you get up?
we had drank Friday night, we had drank Saturday night.
He had been out Saturday night, and he just lazy, did not show up Sunday morning.
But when Larry mentions Kim's name, his attitude changes.
One of the things that struck me most about Joshua Veal's interview is that he kind of had a fascination or infatuation with Kim Dorsey, kind of like romantic interest. It was strange in that way.
My conversation with him was, when you lived with them, did you and Kim have anything going on, sexual? The way he answered it, it was a little kind of like he didn't, but if he coulda, he woulda.
How'd she look?
1 to 10. Would you ask me if I would hit it?
Sure.
8.
Joshua Veal's infatuation with Kim Dorsey has put him front and center in her murder investigation.
Have you ever had sex with her? Be honest with me.
No, I wish.
You wish?
So I started asking him, if he had talked to Kim recently, and he had. And then I finally said, well, did you hear what happened to her? He's like, no, what are you talking about?
She's dead.
Oh, don't tell me that, man.
just a flow of emotions. I mean, you would think that it was, in fact, his mom that was murdered, and he just couldn't deal with it.
You know anybody that might want to hurt her?
No. No, that was like a mom to me, man. Oh, please.
It was very authentic, and so it kind of X'd him off of my list. But still, you know, they went through and they got his DNA just to make sure that he was not, in fact, involved in the crime. It was negative. He was excluded as a contributor to the DNA.
Derek provides police with additional names of people familiar with his home.
Everybody we talked to, they all gave us the sample, and everyone kept coming back negative, negative, negative.
So Detective Kuskowski takes a new approach.
I want to do a walkthrough of the house with Derek and let him point out anything that maybe we missed, ask some questions about some things that we found before we turn the house back over to him. Because once we're done, we're done. When we initially walked the scene in the kitchen, we found 3 or 4 remotes in the sink. It's part of the surround sound system, which was very odd. Somebody had run water over the remotes. My partner asked him, hey, show us how to turn on the TV here in the living room. So Derek was able to turn the TV on, and right away, a pornographic movie starts to play. We're like, wow. And Derek loses it. He's like, that's not mine. Whoever did this, dropping expletives, whoever did this, they watched that. That is not my movie. My belief was that whoever committed the murder at some point sat down and watched this movie.
The discovery points to another man Derek says had recently been to the house.
They were having problems, I think, with the remote or something with their TV system.
Friday in the afternoon, they had a gentleman come over from a sound company that made some adjustments to the surround sound of his entertainment system.
The service call occurred approximately 12 hours before Kim was killed.
So the sound guy was in our crosshairs. He's the guy that knows how to run the system. He worked on the system and wire all these things in the sink. He's thinking in his mind, he puts it in the sink and runs water over it. Does it wash away any DNA or anything like that?
We didn't know if something happened between him and Kim where he maybe became infatuated with her or came back to the house.
Detectives quickly track him down.
So we met with the sound guy. He said, yeah, I went out on Friday night to work on the system. He said it wasn't unusual. He said, Derek's had me at this house before. He had another house that I used to go to and handle his affairs there with the sound system. We noticed when we were sitting there, the sound guy had some cuts on his hands. So, we keyed in on those. Were they the results of scratches that, were inflicted in a struggle with another person? We actually asked him about them, and he's like, well, I'm working with wire all the time, and I run it, up in attics, and so, my hands are always cut up.
The technician is adamant he never returned to the house.
We told him what had happened. He wasn't even aware of it, and this was 2 or 3 days after Kim's body was found, so he hadn't even seen anything on the news. Of course, I asked him, if he would volunteer a DNA sample, and he readily, hey, whatever you need. When I walked out of the interview with him, I said, I don't think so.
The DNA test confirms this instinct. The unsolved crime now begins to weigh heavily on the team.
Part of it was we had been up so long at this point, and we had taken samples from so many people. As an investigator and working with the evidence technicians, even if it takes you to a dead end, we need to go down that road, and we need to look at everything. We owe it to Kim, or any victim, that we, thoroughly investigate the entire case.
Then, they get the break they've been looking for.
There was a crime analyst that caught like a common, everyday type of police report on a temporary and unauthorized use of a vehicle.
It's kind of a fancy way of saying the car was stolen, but you let the person take it.
The theft took place just 17 hours before the murder.
So the girl that reported the car stolen made the police report. They took all of her information and, of course, the information of the person who she let use the car, who never returned the car, which was Lance Kirkpatrick.
Lance Kirkpatrick's name came up early on in the investigation when Derek Dorsey was basically going through and kind of who was in and out of the house. During the initial interview with Derek Dorsey, he calls him LJ, and I remember these words very clear. He was like, absolutely not. He would take a bullet for Kim.
Why are you so certain about him?
I just know him long enough. Something like that, no. I think we respected him too much.
Lance is still supposed to be on the shrimp boat. Nothing's adding up now.
That basically put Lance Kirkpatrick back on the map.
A stolen car report forces a familiar name back into focus: Lance Kirkpatrick.
I talked to the girl who reported the vehicle stolen. She laid out basically the activities of her on that Friday night. They were at his apartment on the south side with Lance and some other folks that were there. And Lance had agreed to go out to buy some drugs. And she lets him take the truck. We're talking early Saturday morning now.
And so that's when Lance Kirkpatrick leaves, never to return with that vehicle.
Detectives must determine if the car ever came close to the Dorsey home.
When the police respond to the scene, part of patrol's responsibility was a neighborhood canvass. So in the initial canvass, one of the patrol officers had talked to a neighbor of the Dorseys that said he had seen a blue small SUV out there that day.
This fits the description of the car Kirkpatrick stole.
Fast forward a few days, we got the information about this truck. One of the other mental notes was that there was a surveillance camera at the gate to the community. So, hey, let's go back and look at the video again. Or if it's working, we should have a video of the truck, which we did.
The footage places the SUV directly on the timeline at 6:30 a.m., the morning of the murder.
As soon as the police saw that surveillance video, Lance Kirkpatrick became the #1 suspect.
To locate him, they turned to the woman whose car he stole.
And I said, well, listen, I'm really looking for Lance. Well, she goes, well, I don't know where he is, but I know where a friend of his is named Brian Kiefer. I said, well, I'd like to talk to Brian. So took him into custody and talked to him about basically his activities and then about Lance Kirkpatrick.
Investigators learned that Brian was at the same house party when the SUV disappeared.
Brian Kiefer says he goes on a night-long taxi ride trying to figure out where Lance Kirkpatrick is because he's one of the ones that let Lance use the car. So he was basically guilty by association. He can't find him, only to find him the following day. He says that Lance looks disheveled. He notices that he has an injury on one of his hands.
What Brian then reveals is completely unexpected.
He tells me that he murdered somebody and is pretty much is going to prison, and there's nothing that can be done about it.
He just said it was a beating. He didn't describe it as we know it to be, which was absolutely horrific and violent.
There are a number of reasons why people, quote, confess to a crime. Primarily, we see it as a guilt complex. People can't wear it, they can't hide it, they can't keep it in. That's the #1 reason why people talk. #2 might be alcohol-fueled or drug-fueled, but then you're only getting a part of a story, as a rule. Usually, if a person's hell-bent to tell a friend of theirs, I did this dastardly deed, they're going to tell them some of the details of the murder itself, but not all of it.
I don't know whether he hit her with that pool stick but he kind of emphasized swinging the pool stick.
Okay.
And then he emphasized being shot at 5 times.
And he says, well, you know, Lance told me that he kept waiting for the 6th shot and it never came. But it was a 5-shot revolver.
But when he heard the window open, he thought the lady was going out through the window. So he ran in there and beat her with his hand and then stabbed her.
It is also through Brian Kiefer that we get Kim Dorsey's last words.
What does he say? Does he say that she was dead, or does he say anything about that?
He said the lady was saying, "Stop. You're killing me."
The detail Brian provides about his friend's actions is abnormally specific.
And it was information that only somebody that was there would have known. So Brian is, immersed himself in the middle of a homicide potentially based on all this information. He's saying Lance did it. Well, how do I know Brian didn't do it?
Brian Kiefer claims he knows who killed Kim Dorsey. But there's only one way to confirm if he's telling the truth. Find Lance Kirkpatrick.
Brian tells us last he saw Lance was at Brian's apartment on the south side of Jacksonville. So we had our law enforcement go over there and pay that apartment a visit. And they found Lance hiding in the attic.
The man once thought to be at sea finally sits down with Detective Koskowski.
All right. Look, Lance, have a seat over there, okay? This will make it a little bit easier.
He was calm, so I was trying to set the stage, just getting to know Lance a little bit more.
Again, careful not to mention Kim's murder.
You and Derek get along pretty well.
Oh, we get along great.
And he's trying to be nonchalant, oh, what are you talking about?
When's the last time you were over at Derek's house?
I went over there a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago.
Do you remember what day it was that you went over there and did that?
Yeah, it was Georgia, Florida.
Georgia, Florida. So
It was Georgia, Florida. It was right before the game.
So did you go inside then let yourself in?
No.
Florida, Georgia is sort of the secular holiday of Jacksonville. Everything shuts down for that weekend.
The game was on Saturday, the day of the murder. Lance has been around long enough with Derek, worked around Derek long enough, he knows the schedule too. Derek is gone for that 24-hour period. His wife was home by herself.
How about you and Kim?
We get along fine.
Okay, you ever had any problems with her?
Mm-mm.
No, nothing like that? Okay. All right.
No, pretty much get along with everybody.
Pretty long, okay. What if I told you I didn't believe all your story?
On what story?
Well,
on what part of the story don't you believe?
The next follow-up question he invoked, and he asked for an attorney, and at that point, we had to stop the interview.
I'm not saying anything else.
Okay. Good luck to you.
With Kirkpatrick refusing to cooperate, investigators must find another way to prove he was inside the house that day.
Lance was smart enough to know when to shut up that night. But at this point, when we weren't talking to Lance, we already had DNA foreign to Kim on her body.
The sheriff's office went about getting DNA from Lance Kirkpatrick's father.
The similarity is overwhelming.
In the quintillion, sextillion, it's like huge numbers, like 2 and 3 times the number of people on Earth. The fact that we had really significant DNA and the fact that he denied going in there was a critical lie that we were able to say, yeah, we got our man.
This not only confirms Kirkpatrick as the killer, but also clears the one remaining suspect, Brian Kiefer. For detectives, Kirkpatrick's movements in the hours before the murder suggest he had a sinister plan in mind.
Lance had, gone out that Friday night with somebody else's car to buy drugs and didn't come back with what he was supposed to come back with. He left to try to go make things right. The one thing he knows is the Dorseys. And he knows how to get into that community. He knows how to get into the house. Lance has been around long enough with Derek, worked around Derek long enough. He knows the schedule. Derek's gone for that 24-hour period. His wife was home by herself. Lance knows that. I think he sat across the street, waited for Derek to leave to go to work that morning. I think shortly thereafter, he went over to the house, initially looked under that dog for the key, let himself in with the key.
That's probably when Kim Dorsey heard him.
He basically lit into her physically, and it just went downhill from there.
The turmoil that she was going through, just a desperate picture of a woman trying to escape. I just couldn't imagine like the terror that she was experiencing.
Despite overwhelming evidence, Lance Kirkpatrick pleads not guilty.
Lance's version was that he and Kim Dorsey were lovers, and that he had gone to her house to have sex with her, and that after they had sex, Kim Dorsey started getting mad at him because he had helped set her husband up with other women, and that enraged Kim Dorsey, and she picked up a gun and started firing at him in a rage. And that everything that happened afterwards was him basically trying to fight back in self-defense.
Self-defense is I punch you and I try to get away from you. I don't beat you with a pool cue till I break the pool cue and half stab you in the neck and tie you up. That's not self-defense. That's a bunch of nonsense.
The jury finds him guilty of first-degree murder and rape. He's sentenced to life without parole. He remains eligible for appeal.
Life without parole is a long time to sit there. Ultimately, it's about Kim here. What happened to her in her house, that shouldn't happen to anybody.
I felt like I did Kim Dorsey justice. It's always a mixed feeling having to put all those facts and evidence out in front of their family, but now they know what happened to her and they knew that she was a fighter. I think that meant a lot to them, that she didn't go quietly. She fought with every cell in her body.
She was so nice and so open-hearted and generous that these monsters took advantage of her.
A brutal killing.
There was blood spattered all over the walls, floor, bed, everywhere.
Identifying her body was one of the most difficult things that I've had to do in my life.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
He was stalking her. He would not leave her alone. He was constantly calling her.
You have another woman involved, maybe seeking revenge.
He was an absolute animal who now, I hope, burns in the hottest part of hell.
The truth will be revealed.
He kind of had a smile on his face, and he called it the perfect murder.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Clinton, Louisiana. A tiny town just north of Baton Rouge. Home to less than 2,000 residents.
Clinton has a reputation for being a very comfortable, very safe, small town.
It's really a quiet parish with a low crime rate.
It has a small downtown, but once you leave the town limits, it's pretty much a rural area.
On the morning of June 26, a woman co-workers called and asked that we go check on her.
The woman is 42-year-old Janora Gillery.
They were just concerned because normally she kept in constant contact with them.
When our first deputy arrived at the house, the side door by the carport was partially opened and had a dog tied up under the steps. Once he made entry into the house, when he walked around the corner, he looked in the room, and that's where he found Miss Gillery, covered with blood and on the floor.
The room was in total disarray. Lamp had been shattered. There were what appeared to be bullet holes in the window. There was blood spattered all over the walls, floor, bed, everywhere. She had a nightshirt or a nightgown that was pushed up. It was a scene of gruesome violence.
The job of finding Janora's killer falls to Sheriff's investigator, Don McKee.
This case was really my first homicide to work, and the scene was really bad. Miss Gillery died from the beating. She had also been shot several times, and she had also been stabbed several times. You just have to do your job and try to put it to the side.
His first task is to notify Janora's family.
Disbelief was my reaction when I heard. When we arrived, we had to face the crime scene. Her father and brother remained outside of the home. I went in and ultimately had to identify the body for the family. It was one of the most difficult things that I've had to do in my life. If you walk into a room, you see someone and you can recognize them within a millisecond. I had to spend about 3 minutes, 4 minutes comparing things like her lips and the finger structure. And by taking little bits and pieces like that, only then could I make a definite identification. Janora was a very intelligent, very attractive woman, very, very full of life. She was an administrator for a major insurance company. She worked very hard, enjoyed living in the country, and she remained true to those country roots all of her life.
You never heard anything bad about Miss Janora. What we learned is she would help anyone that needed help and do whatever she could for people, and she was just a caring person.
She just couldn't say no to human or animal. I think Janora just couldn't pass up an animal that needed help. That's why she ended up with, 20 or 25 dogs and a giant kennel on her property. That's why she ended up with, horses.
Many of her animals were strays, particularly the dogs and cats. She purchased the horses, enjoyed riding and enjoyed being just around those horses.
In order to find the killer, Detective McKee begins the difficult task of reconstructing the last 24 hours of Janora Gillery's life.
When you're building timelines, you have a very open mind. A timeline can be filled in by almost any kind of information. You don't know how far back you have to go until you find somebody to fill the puzzle in.
The only timeline we had was when she left work early that Friday to come home. Her co-worker advised us that she did leave early that Friday. It was shortly after noon. The autopsy shows that the homicide could have happened anywhere from noon on Saturday to noon on Sunday.
With a wide window of time for her murder, Detective McKee looks to the scene for clues that may lead him to the killer.
There's blood by the drawer where the knives were. There's blood on the counter. I think at one time she tried to get a knife or something to defend herself with. The pattern from the side door showed spots of blood to where she ran towards the front door. There was keys in the front door. It was a deadbolt lock. There was blood on them keys that indicated she was trying to get out of that door, that she was trying to run away. Her phone was knocked off the hook. There was blood on the wall there.
Despite the violence, there is no physical or forensic evidence pointing to a potential suspect.
There was a gun involved, there was a knife, and some type of blunt object. And none of those were found on the scene, so the perpetrator took them away with them. The fact that no murder weapons were left on the scene means that the perpetrator at least had the presence of mind to try and cover their tracks.
There was no forced entry, so she had to open the door. The dog was tied up, and we learned real quick that that would have never happened with Miss Gillery.
It appeared that someone had secured that dog while they made entry into the house.
The indications that we got was basically that she was killed by someone she knew.
Police begin to canvass the area to see if anyone saw or heard anything during the window in which Janora was killed.
Miss Gillery had very few neighbors right in the area, and the closest neighbor was across the street from her, and that turned out to be the Skippers.
Amy and Philip Skipper live with their newborn and a young man they had taken in.
Philip Skipper was the guardian or sort of de facto stepfather to a teenage boy named John Ballio. The Skippers and John Ballio were very cooperative. Philip Skipper said that he and John Ballio had been helping a neighbor move on Saturday and didn't arrive home until late that night. Philip said that he, his wife, and child were at the Skipper's trailer across the street after that, and they didn't hear anything.
Amy was emotionally destroyed, talking about how well Miss Gillery had treated them and how much Miss Janora had done for them and helped them out.
The relationship between Janora Gillery and the Skippers was close. They saw each other all the time, and Janora did whatever she could to help them out because they were poor. They initially lived in this really dilapidated trailer. She helped them get a newer one. She sometimes bought things for them, especially for their baby, diapers, some baby food, formula. She even decided to go ahead and name her good friends across the street as the beneficiaries of a life insurance policy.
They would also, in return, do things for Miss Gillery that when she would have to go out of town for her job, they would take care of the animals.
She gave them money. They cleaned her house. They were in constant communication all the time.
During their interview with the Skippers, they never could come up with anybody to lead us to anybody that would do anything to Miss Janora. They advised that she very seldom had company, so they was unable to give us any names or anywhere to look for a suspect.
Despite their willingness to talk, something seems off.
Philip Skipper was just overwhelmingly trying to assist the family. He talked good about Miss Janora, but then he would constantly go to, I'll clean it up, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll take care of the dogs, I'll take care of the animals. I've never seen somebody that was willing to help as much as Philip was. I felt that they knew something.
Detective McKee observes something that needs explaining.
We'd noticed some scratches on his arm. He said that him and his stepson were wrestling in the yard. And John did have scratches on his arms also, and his story was the same as Philip's story, which was really suspicious to me.
So they need to look at the neighbors and see if they're actually involved in it.
Bloody scratches on the arms of two of Janora Gillery's neighbors has police questioning if they were involved in her murder.
In a case like this, in which the victim struggles with the assailant, it would not be unusual that there be some blood from the victim scratching the assailant.
When pressed for an explanation, Philip makes an unusual admission.
He said that Miss Gillery had argued with the Skippers due to the fact that a dog had killed one of the Skippers' goats. And they was blaming it on Miss Janora's dog. And Miss Janora was sure it was not her dog. She had told the Skippers that they was no longer welcome to come to her house, that she would stay to herself, they needed to stay to themselves.
The argument took place just 1 month prior to her death.
Tension between neighbors, that's always kind of a red flag that goes up. But you need something in a murder, you know. Why would you do it? You need a motive, an opportunity. They had an opportunity, they were right across the street. They had a semi-motive that was a tension. But it's kind of like cutting the arm that feeds you. You know, she was helping them a lot. You know, why murder her?
They ask both Philip and his stepson, John, to take a polygraph.
In some cases, when you're investigating murders, you will use a polygraph as an investigative aid. It is to send messages to the person. You don't believe them. Why would you ask them to take a polygraph otherwise?
My advice to anybody who's asked to take a polygraph is say, sure, I'll take it. If you're an innocent person, the police are going to say, well, you're no longer a suspect, so take the polygraph.
Both Philip and John Ballio had no problem with taking a polygraph. The questions related to the case were, did you kill Miss Janora Gillery? Did you stab or shoot Janora? Can you take us to the gun that was used to kill Miss Janora? Both Philip and John Ballio passed. Once they passed, we had no other evidence to pin them to the murder.
Detectives need to find who Janora might have been in contact with. in her last 24 hours. Her co-workers provide the name of a recent boyfriend, Tommy Alexander.
Basically, they met through horses. Janora owned horses, Tommy Alexander owned horses. They met at the feed store in the nearby town. They started dating. They dated a little while. Then that ended when Janora found out that Tommy Alexander had another girlfriend. That opens up all kind of possibilities. I mean, you have another woman involved. Maybe Tommy would be mad about something. Maybe the other woman would be seeking revenge.
It's a crime of passion. People act without thinking. If you can show me a love triangle, I'll tell you have a potential homicide on your hands.
They bring Tommy Alexander in.
Tommy, when talking to him, he was calm. He was saddened by Miss Janora's death. He was saying how good of a person she was, just like everybody else we had talking to had said.
They question him about his most recent interaction with Janora.
Tommy Alexander told the detectives that he had spoken to Janora on Wednesday. They had seen each other. One was transferring horses to another. There were some papers to sign. So that was the last time he spoke to her, was on Friday.
Police must confirm his whereabouts during the time in which Janora was killed.
He had an alibi. He said he had been home all weekend with his girlfriend, which turned out to be true. She backed him up on that story. They were able to eliminate him in the investigation as a possible suspect.
He was really upset. Nothing to raise an eyebrow to think that he was involved in the homicide. Based on his story and the lack of evidence we had, we really had to start looking other places.
So it was going back, did she have anything out of the ordinary happening in her life?
Looking for answers, they turned to Janora's phone records.
We had a phone call that would have matched the last day that Miss Janora was alive. We traced it, we tracked it. It was associated with someone named Steve Williams.
The call was placed at 8:27 a.m. that Saturday, potentially making Williams the last person to speak to Janora alive.
Steve Williams was a Baton Rouge police officer. He pestered her at work to the point where she eventually agreed to go on a date with him. When she got back, she told her coworkers that she never wanted to see him again. She said he was too free with his hands. He kept grabbing her and touching her, and she didn't really want to see him anymore. At the time all this was going on, Steve Williams was actually married. He and his wife had a child, but apparently that didn't stop his romantic pursuits in other areas.
Janora's friends say he was relentless.
We were told that Steve Williams basically was stalking her, was real aggressive towards Miss Janora. Steve had been coming to her work in Baton Rouge and had actually made everybody in the building feel uncomfortable about the way he would show up to meet Janora when she would get off from work, show up at lunchtime. He was really aggressive towards Janora, trying to get her into a relationship with him.
The thing about stalking is there is an obsession, and he's demonstrating that with multiple phone calls, showing up just unexpectedly. So if he's obsessed with her, he may not be satisfied with the level of attention that he's getting from her, and he may progress that to aggression.
That was a huge red flag for the investigators. I mean, when you have a domestic situation like that, it really puts them on high alert. So they really began to focus on Steve Williams. You know, you have a sort of a jilted boyfriend who keeps bothering her, who keeps wanting to come by and see her. And all of a sudden, he's going to come by whether she wants it or not, and then she's never seen again.
Baton Rouge police officer Steve Williams, who once dated homicide victim Janora Gillery, is now the lead suspect in her murder.
Police officers don't like investigating other police officers. Something you want to shy away from. You know, they don't like to think that another cop would be involved in some kind of criminal activity. But cops generally have a very intimate knowledge of, you know, law enforcement and how crimes are committed. So a police officer can be a more wary suspect because you would presume that he or she knows what not to do, what evidence to make sure it doesn't get left. So they make sort of dangerous criminals. They're so knowledgeable about the investigative process itself.
His potential involvement comes down to the call he made to her the day she died.
When the detectives questioned Steve Williams, you know, of course, he denied having anything to do with Janora's death. He said that they were friends, and he resented the fact that he was characterized as sort of a stalker. He said that he did call her a few times a week, but, you know, just do some friendly chit-chatting.
They narrow in on the one call they're interested in.
Steve admitted to calling her Saturday.
He said that although he did call her, he was going to come by Saturday, he never made it. So the detectives were sort of left with, you know, is this guy telling the truth? He very well may have been the last person, you know, to see her alive. I mean, he could be the killer.
Police learn of another call between Steve and Janora, witnessed by her colleagues.
So the Friday before Janora was killed, Steve Williams called her work. Her co-workers said they engaged in an argument on the telephone, and then she left work. So, you know, whether that argument played into her leaving work early or it was strictly just to go do some chores around her house, you know, nobody really knows. But there was a verbal altercation on the phone, and then later Steve Williams says that he was going to come by. So, you know, from the investigator's standpoint, you know, this is looking more and more like he's the #1 suspect in her murder.
They interview his co-workers and discover a disturbing trend.
Steve Williams had a reputation, a history of this sort of overly aggressive pursuit of whatever love interest he had. In the Baton Rouge Police Academy, there was a female recruit who made the complaint against him.
We interviewed his co-worker, and she was able to give us some information about how Steve Williams acted towards her.
She said he kept harassing her, would call her at home, off duty, about academy class type business, but she was in a relationship with somebody and she didn't want him making these late night calls.
Based on the information we got about Steve Williams going after her, it was basically the same way that he went after Miss Janora. So it showed a pattern of aggressiveness and jealousy.
We look at the past to look to the future. People are creatures of habit. So it's an indicator. It's patterns of behavior and tells, in and of itself, is not evidence. But as a trained investigator, you're looking for that because that will lead you to ask certain questions.
So he had a reputation for this kind of behavior. And of course, the police have to look at this and say, well, this time they could go even a step further. Did he kill her?
Believing Steve Williams had both motive and opportunity, they bring him in again, this time for a polygraph.
Anytime you investigate a police officer, you got to be careful because you don't know their state of mind. You're telling this man that his career as a police officer is about to come to an end because he's suspected in a murder. He didn't do good on the polygraph.
His results indicated that he was lying about one or more things in his answers.
And that's when he advised that he was not going to talk to us anymore without a lawyer. So we obtained a search warrant and went to his residence. We actually seized his police car and had it towed to the crime lab for processing. What we was hoping to find was a murder weapon or some bloody clothes or any other type of evidence that might help us in the investigation. Unfortunately, we came up with no weapon that would have matched what we was looking for.
A drop of Janora Gillery's blood in Steve Williams's car or house would have convicted him. I mean, there's really no other excuse for that.
I really thought that Steve Williams was the man I was after. Just did not have enough to do anything with.
All you have is odd circumstances, him making a phone call, leaving a message, him sort of harassing her at work, but you know, none of that's a crime and they couldn't charge him.
That's really when the case came to a complete stop. We just had nowhere else we could follow up to.
Not every homicide case can be solved or will be solved. We have to be realistic. You do as much as you can to the best of your ability. You will get frustrated.
In this case, they talked to the co-workers, they talked to the neighbors, they talked to everybody that they could find, but they didn't have any physical evidence or a real motive.
I was getting aggravated because I wanted to solve it, and I done told Mr. Gillery that we was gonna solve it. And there's nothing I could tell the family, except for we're working on it. We're waiting for a break.
Janora's death took a tremendous toll on her family. Illnesses, divorce, directly resulted from this murder. But this matter never went cold for Investigator Mackey. We trusted Mr. Mackey tremendously. We knew that Mackey was doing a great job.
Over a year after Janora's death, police receive a call that sets the investigation back into motion.
The detectives got a tip from another jurisdiction. They went over to interview this alleged witness, a guy named Donnie Fisher.
Initially, what indicated to the police officers that Donnie Fisher may know something about a homicide in East Feliciana Parish.
He had given some details of the murder. I knew exactly what murder he was talking about. When interviewing Donnie, he at first didn't want to cooperate. What I done was I laid pictures of the crime scene and got on to him and said, this woman did not deserve this. She was a good woman. After I showed him that, he told us what was told to him.
He was friends with Philip Skipper and John Ballio.
Fisher says Janora's neighbors took him to her house after the murder.
Donnie Fisher told us then Miss Janora's family paid them to clean up the house.
Philip Skipper told me, what would I think if I killed Gillery? And I kind of took it as a joke at first.
And what did he tell you?
You know, he kind of had a smile on his face, and you know, I knew. He didn't have to just come out and say it. I knew in my mind. He called it the perfect murder.
And then he said that John Ballio had taken him into the house and told him step by step how they killed Miss G.
When he was taken to the house, what was he saying?
He was saying where the blood was. He was telling me everything.
If Fisher is telling the truth, this means Skipper and Ballio lied about where they were the night she died.
Fisher started giving details of the murder that he would not have knowledge of.
And one of them held the dog back, knocked on the door, hit her with a baseball bat, knocked her teeth out, cut her up, shot her in the head.
Donnie Fisher implicated Philip Skipper, Johnny Hoyt, Lisa Hoyt, and John Ballio.
This information adds 2 new names to the investigation: Philip's sister, Lisa Hoyt, and her husband, Johnny.
That's the first time we heard of Johnny Hoyt's name was when we interviewed Donnie Fisher.
Johnny Hoyt was kind of a stocky guy. He was kind of a bigger built, muscular type guy.
So you have this little tight group of people here, and the statement from Donnie Fisher implicated them all in the murder.
Donnie continues, telling police of Philip's admissions.
Did he say who cut?
He didn't say, he just said we.
Did he say who shot?
He just said we. It was a gang. It's not, they're like one people, okay? He said it's a thrill. That's what he told me. It was a thrill. He says it's the best feeling you'll ever have.
The story that he told, it was no doubt in my mind that we was going after the right people this time.
But without any physical evidence, they need to find another way to prove beyond a doubt that the 4 people Fisher has named are responsible for the murder.
You play on what feelings of remorse they might have. You want to get them to confess. And they don't have to confess, of course. They can just ask for a lawyer and the whole thing's over.
Brought into custody, Philip Skipper, Lisa Hoyt, and Johnny Hoyt all refused to cooperate.
John Ballio was the last person that we was able to talk to. It was a long interview. It was a couple hours probably. And finally he just broke.
Philip and Lisa, me and Johnny. We was going over there to see Miss G. They wanted me to watch them kill Miss G and hold the dog. Did they say why they wanted you to watch? It would be my true test of brotherhood.
A year after the murder of Janora Gillery, police have damning testimony from a 15-year-old who was witness to the crime.
John Ballio basically told us it was part of my initiation to get into the brotherhood, was to go and participate and watch them kill Miss G. The brotherhood was a white supremacist group. It was a hate group, is what it was.
And the initials for the Brotherhood was GFBD. God forgives, the Brotherhood doesn't. And, you know, as with all gangs, they're created to intimidate, to scare people.
All right, what happens? When we got there, Lisa walked up to the door and knocked on it and told Miss G that she needed some money to get the baby some diapers. And when she did that, Johnny punched Miss G. The first time she got stabbed, Lisa stabbed her. And then Johnny stabbed her and Philip. They all took turns.
When did they shoot her? Before they stabbed her or after they stabbed her?
Before they stabbed her. They was making me watch, saying that it would show if I was a true brother or not, or whether or not I could keep my mouth shut.
Ballio explains this wasn't the only motivation.
He said Miss Gillery had a life insurance policy that was signed over to Philip Skipper and Amy Skipper.
The growing fight over the goat and the dog incident made Philip Skipper realize she's going to change the beneficiary on that policy or just outright cancel it, and we need to get over there and kill her so that we benefit from that policy. Two people who live in a trailer out in the middle of the woods, $25,000 was pretty significant. I think race and money played kind of equal parts. If Janora Gillery had been a white woman, I doubt they would have killed her.
I think John finally broke because he did feel bad about what happened. I think he realized what he had done was wrong.
I thought it was pretty sick myself. I was crying, but I was also just trying to shut up so they wouldn't get worried about me telling on them. Because they said if I ever said anything, they'd kill me.
Armed with Ballio's confession and a complete understanding of the timeline, detectives now have enough to press charges against the 4 conspirators.
Miss Gillery left work that Friday to come home. Saturday, Philip Skipper, Lisa, and Johnny Hart, they had been popping pills, drinking all day long.
They determined that they wanted to go over there and initiate John Ballio into the Brotherhood.
Midnight, 1 o'clock, they all go over there. Lisa knocked on the door. When Miss Gillery came to the door, Johnny Hart punched her. They chased her in the bedroom. That's when they took turns shooting her, stabbing her, and then beating her with the bat. After they killed her, they went back to their house. They burned their clothes and shoes. Gun used, they said they threw it off in the river.
The district attorney charges all 4 suspects with murder.
Lisa Hoyt pled guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to 25 years in prison.
Philip Skipper went to trial, was found guilty. 2nd-degree murder, he got life in prison. Johnny Hart also went to trial and was found guilty and is serving life in prison.
John Ballio cooperated. He was a juvenile when this occurred, and he pled guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to juvenile life.
Janora was so nice and so open-hearted and generous that these monsters took advantage of that.
It is a dumb dog that bites the hand that feeds it. And Philip Skipper was a dumb dog, a swine, an absolute animal, who now, I hope, burns in the hottest part of hell.
I feel a lot better now in this case that we done our best. The DA done his job, and we got justice for the family. And I feel that the family's happy, so if they're happy, I'm happy.
We work for their families. I just want to make them sleep better at night. You know, they need to put this behind them.
And I would not want us to forget the life, the lively, happy, smiling, beautiful person that Janora was.